If a girl was in need of drugs, was in need of a fix, was drug sick, needed some help, that Mr. Sawyer was the place to go.
New information tonight on the indictment of a Brown County businessman for sex and drug crimes. Good evening, I'm Rob Braun.
And I'm Paula Toti. A 70-year-old businessman is accused of giving women drugs in exchange for sex.
Investigators say Thomas Sawyers used his business as a cover for those crimes. Local 12's Deborah Dixon shows us how it might be linked to the sex crime indictment of Brown County's chief probation officer earlier this year.
Prosecutors allege Tom Sawyers hired the women to work for his Brown County asphalt company. The hourly rate was high. The sex trafficking charges have to do with what happened after hours. Assistant Brown County Prosecutor Woody Breyer said most of the women who applied for that job were heroin addicts because the word was also out that Sawyers would provide heroin and that money if you had sex with him.
The allegations are that he provided them drugs, which is something they needed, and the allegations are that he also required them to perform for him sexually in exchange for either drugs or the money with which to buy drugs.
Because the company had state and county contracts, pay for a flagger could be $38 an hour. Most of the women hired were addicts, heroin addicts.
The bottom line is the jobs came and went. In other words, he hired and fired, laid off, called back, depending on what they would do for him.
Earlier this year, Brown County's chief probation officer, Dale Anderson, was indicted for having sexual contact with a woman who was on probation.
It's clear that Anderson and Sawyer knew each other. It's clear that some of the girls who are victims in our current indictment are familiar with Anderson also, and primarily as probationers of Mr. Anderson.
And there is something else. The whole investigation started after a fatal fentanyl overdose of a young woman back in 2016.
That's what started this process. It's led us to where we are today. It's not done.
Not done until investigators figure out where she got the heroin that killed her. Deborah Dixon, Local 12 News.
There is no mugshot of Tom Sawyers because he is currently bedridden following a farming accident. He did pay a $100,000 bond to be on home incarceration. If he were in jail, Brown County would have to pay for his medical bills. We could not reach his attorney, but he told the Brown County Press Sawyers will continue to proclaim his innocence.